Welcome to installment number 286 of the Mitzvahs as enumerated by Maimonides. Today we are continuing our conversation about slaves, a little bit different laws today, but we are still talking about the slaves and about the maid servant. So, as we said, it is really not something that is encouraged or, something that we do to sell a slave. But we did say that under two specific circumstances, one can sell themselves as a slave. Number one is if they committed a theft that they were not able to pay, then the high court might help them repay their debt by selling themselves as a slave so that they can accrue enough money to repay it. And secondly is if they are so incredibly poor that they don't even have money to buy food or clothing, then these are circumstances as well where they can, find themselves in a situation where they sell themselves as a slave. However, number one, we have positive commandment 196, the importance of procuring severance pay for a slave. If a slave did choose to sell themselves as a slave, it is important that they are sent off with a nice amount. And then we have the inverse, negative commandment 233, which is the prohibition of sending away a slave without their severance pay. And we are told you shall not let them away empty-handed. And a specific amount is worth 30 shekel. I'm sure the 30 shekel of today is not quite the same 30 shekel of the day that this was established. And particularly they should be given things like sheep or wheat or things that can reproduce and help them to reestablish themselves. The next three mitzvahs are regarding a maidservant. Now, as we said, these other two reasons why somebody would sell themselves as a slave is about the person himself. Now we are talking about a father who is so poor that he has no other choice but to sell his daughter into slavery. And of course, as we said, this is not something that is encouraged, but we do this in order to help the poor. And again, we have very specific guidelines with how these people must be treated. So firstly, we have very interesting positive commandment number 233 is that the master is required to marry her or that his son should marry her, that she should be married into the family, of course, depending on what is most appropriate. And the reason is that clearly if this girl is so poor that she needed to be sold into slavery, and we're talking about, some really, really quite a level of poverty here, then how on earth is this father going to marry her off? And it is for this reason and to preserve her dignity that the owner is encouraged to marry her. And once she does become married, she is not allowed to be treated as a slave and must be treated as a wife and get all the benefits that a wife gets. Positive commandment 234 is to redeem her and give her freedom. So, of course, you either redeem her or marry her, which is really one and the same. Marrying her redeems her, or you can help her get redeemed. But marrying her actually comes first, rather than redeeming her. But of course, all circumstances are different. And negative commandment 261, which is the prohibition to sell her, which, as we said, we are prohibited from selling people. We cannot sell people. It is quite a serious prohibition. Now, again, only under two circumstances can a woman sell herself, and they are similar to what we already said, that if it was, she was convicted of theft and she was unable to repay. And again, if she was so impoverished that she has nothing to wear and nothing to eat, as we have said. Now, interestingly, this only goes for 6 years, and this is for any slave that has decided to sell themselves as a slave. It is only for 6 years. And if the Jubilee year does so happen to fall in between during this time, they are set free, even if it's just 1 year into their tenure or however long it is. If the Jubilee year does come while they are a slave, they are set free. And we just see here the tremendous sensitivity that the Torah gives to a slave, and really to anybody who is in a vulnerable state. And it is a real lesson for each one of us. How often do we meet people that are in a vulnerable state for whatever reason, even if they are not poor at all? But we all have our vulnerabilities, and it is important to be sensitive to each other's vulnerabilities so that each person is given the dignity that they deserve, the love that they deserve, because truly everybody has qualities that only that they have, and they should be appreciated for. Have a wonderful day.